Ancient Sparta is one of the most well-known and supposedly most feared city-states in history. The Spartan society was known for its highly skilled warriors, elitist administrators, and its reverence for stoicism. Yet, as is often the case, many of the perceptions we have of classical Sparta are based on somewhat exaggerated stories. Today, learn the truth about Sparta as it gets deep fat fried.
Fat of Friday.
2022 will be the year that we literally drown you in content. 156 standard 30-minute episodes of Deep Fat Fried, 52 long-form episodes of Deep Fat Fried, 37 episodes of Dank D&D, live episodes of Onion Nuggets every Wednesday, new Cinema for Cynics reviews, Fighting Boys, Abandon Hope, Hideology, Ask Hollywood Love, and The Grease Trap. And even if you manage to watch it all, we still have a massive back catalog of old content that's going to blow your mind. We have got metric tons of old commentaries, grease traps, mountains of Deep Fat Fried episodes. We got oceans of flash fries. We got valleys of Abandon Hope and Hideology and other miscellaneous content you could watch for weeks, if not months, straight. And with all this content, both new and old, we have realized that it is time to simplify our Patreon. Yes! Right now, our Patreon is split into a $10 tier and a $5 tier. Now, this has long aggrieved us because our philosophy in this company is that simplicity is best. How do we create so much content? We keep it simple. We keep it streamlined. We commit to a process, and we constantly fine-tune that process. Anything that wastes time, we get rid of. Having two patron tiers is not in line with our philosophy. So, we've decided to unify into a single tier at the price point of $7. Join the Pessimist Productions Patreon today, because we are looking very forward to entertaining you all in 2022.
This is Sparta!
I'll be honest with you, Paul. I mean, I know, look, no all kayfabe and aside and stuff. Look, I've seen the movie 300, which we all know is a pretty accurate depiction of Spartan history.
I feel like everything in that movie was
think
true.
I pretty much know Spartan history. I mean, I'll still go on with this episode out of respect to you, man. But look, I've seen the movie 300, so I pretty much know what happened. They were all a bunch of dudes. They had like red cloaks or whatever, airbrushed abs. They were like little thing, like I don't know what you call that. Like the little basically their underwear,
the
and some boots, and they had a spear. That's all they did, and they just fucking fought and fucked and ate. That's all they did.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what this episode is about. No, to be honest with you, I started this episode. I was like, yeah, I'll do a little Spartan history or whatever, and then I got like about a quarter of the way into doing it, and I was just like, and then Demosthenes split from the second Peloponnesian force, and and I was just like, uh-oh, done did it now. And so I stopped, and I was like, what does my dumb, stoned ass actually know about the Spartans? And I made a list, and I saw, which ones of them were true, and which ones of them were bullshit. But I did start with a little bit of actual history about, like at least how Sparta started.
How did Sparta start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story of Sparta typically begins in the 8th or 9th century BC, the founding of the city of Sparta and the emergence of a unified Greek language. However, people had been living in the area where Sparta would be founded, starting in the Neolithic area, so for some 6,000 years. The founders of Sparta are a group known as the Dorians.
It's the villain in The Mask.
Is it? Oh, yeah, Dorian. Yeah,
dude.
You're right.
He kind of sucked.
He did. He was lame.
Yeah. He was pretty lame.
He didn't use his mask powers very well.
He looked stupid when they put the mask on. That was a real issue.
He made himself less mobile. It didn't make any sense.
And it seemed like he got fatter too.
He did.
It's like
he was like buff. He was like a fuscular.
Yeah, he was, but I don't know. Yeah, it didn't work. Whatever.
The mythological origin of the name of the Dorians is from the son of Helen, Doris. There's also theories that the name goes back even farther than that, and that it's derived from earlier languages, and it might have meant spear or forest at some point. We don't have an exact date for the founding of the city-state of Sparta, but most historians place it sometime around 950 to 930 BCE. It was founded by the Dorian tribes living in the region, but interestingly, Sparta came into existence not as a new city, but rather as an agreement between 4 villages in the Eurotas Valley, Limni, Kynasura, Meso, and Pitana, to merge into one entity and combine their forces. And then later on, the village of Amyklai. You see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying about this Greek history shit? I mean, it's very dense, very impenetrable. It's kind of tough.
Well, it's just,
because it's like,
well, it's like small. You take like it's like you're going from like more tribal societies to
like,
more formed, like as we understand, like basically the formation of like a new thing, like a city state, which is like we're like the beginnings of what's going to become like nations.
Yeah,
right.
but because it's like, it's like a bunch of references to shit you don't know about.
You have to kind of like start at the
way
very
Sparta
beginning.
was started was 4 things you've never heard of became one thing you have heard of. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
People becoming classified in larger and larger groups.
Exactly.
That's basically
Right, and it's just like a bunch of, like we do this today. It's like the states all band together.
A lot of cities do that. Like cities grow by saying like, hey, a bunch of these other little cities are now going to become part of this bigger. They're just going to join wherever city.
One thing that all this crazy intrigue that we're going through led to all these different villages coming together and joining together to be a city state was that Sparta was governed by 2 kings, which made it unique at its or relatively unique in history, and is certainly unique in the Greek world.
We're leaders to kings. We're fucking leaders to kings.
I poisoned your wine, TJ.
I poisoned yours as well.
So regardless of the exact chain of events, these Dorian roots, both real and mythological, would help set the stage for the founding of the eventually, powerful city of Sparta, the development of a highly militaristic culture that would eventually become a major player in the ancient world. So it was at this point in the research that I was like, all right,
Too much.
Nobody's going to listen to me talk about Themosthenes and Diametricles having a fucking, argument and blah, blah, blah. So I really did ask myself, I was like, what is my dumbass with my dumbass fucking American, went through high school and had a little bit of college education? What do I know about Sparta?
What do I actually know?
And so here's what I know. Okay, number 1, Sparta, when you're born in there, you come out, they look at you, right? They give you the inspecto. And if you're misshapen, or you're like, you got a twisted arm, or you're missing a finger, or you got an extra finger, yeah, they do the Kobe Bryant fade off this cliff right here, right? the Mount Taygetos. And they chuck that little fucking bastard down there because, you know what? We don't need no malformed people in Sparta, right? I knew that was
get them
the
out of
thing.
here. No frail kids, no diseased kids, no deformed kids. Chuck them over the cliff. Keep Sparta strong.
Spartans supposedly had to prove their fitness even as infants. Some early historical and mythological authors report the practice of infanticide was organized and managed by the state. All Spartan infants were brought before a council of inspectors and examined for physical defects. If any were found, the father was ordered to leave the child defenseless and alone in a pit called the Apothete, which is at the bottom of the edge of Mount Taygetos, where it would probably starve to death. Now, you may have heard the more extreme version that they threw the babies off the mountain.
I feel like the starvation is really more extreme.
It actually is. It's actually cruel.
At least when you throw them off, it's like splat, dead.
The baby probably doesn't even know it's falling. You know what I mean? Babies are just like little worms. It's just like whatever.
And then it's just gone. But then you left it there to starve. It's like please,
food.
So that's horrible.
But neither one of these practices actually has much evidence backing it up. So the Greek myth that Spartans threw their stunted and sickly newborns off a cliff or left them to starve was not corroborated by archaeological digs in the area. After more than 5 years of analysis of human remains culled from this pit, also called an apothetus, researchers found only the remains of adolescents and adults between the age of like 18 and 35. So
not too many babies there. Then.
So probably more likely
right.
Zero.
Probably people falling accidentally, or maybe criminals or something. People
it was
pushed off.
more than likely criminals or enemies of the state or helots, who had risen up against the Spartans. Because we'll talk a little bit about that later. Spartan society had some pretty cruel divisions in it.
Yeah, because there is historical documentation of society using that as like basically an execution method. Like you get pushed off a cliff.
Right. So Athens faculty of medicine anthropologist Theodoros Pistitos said there were still bones in the area, but none of them from newborns. According to the samples we took from the bottom of the pit of the foothills of Mount Taygete near present-day Sparta, it's probably a myth. The ancient sources of this so-called practice were rare, late, and imprecise, he added. Most of the like the crazy stuff that we think about Sparta came from this one historian, Plutarch. And it's not that he was a bad historian. It's not that everything, because he's used as a major source in a lot of historical documents.
Sure,
but he was also a moralistic historian, which means that he was trying to like, you know what I mean? Whatever. Everybody knows that history.
He's trying to put his fucking spin on, like he wants to like
his personal feelings were injected into it. Like this is kind of like,
I don't like this society, so this is like the stuff they did that was bad or whatever.
And he wasn't even really like looking at it trying to brutalize them. He was using it as a way to like really drive home that they were a warrior culture or whatever. That
makes sense, because that's like kind of like
that's what they're known for to this day.
The myth kind of persists, right? Because you know,
and I mean, most of these historians, like they didn't obviously. I mean, like Sparta might have existed at that time, that these things were written. But I mean, like most people didn't actually. If you go back, a lot of stuff is just like it's like the legends and stories,
right?
That are told over and over again. So they get written down as like, well, this is what we know about Sparta. Because I mean, they're not doing the research that people can do today. They're hearing apocryphal tales.
Yeah, so they probably did throw some people off of Mount Taygetos. But it was, like you said, it was probably people that had criminals, rapists, people that had risen up against the aristocracy or whatever the fuck, enemies of the state, foreigners, slaves, shit like that. It wasn't like common practice for them to kill their babies. At least as far as we can tell from archaeological evidence, although it is possible that it did happen. It's possible that at some point in Spartan history that, that was passed down. Yeah. As something that actually happened. So we don't know for sure, but it's more than likely didn't. So my stoned ass thought, what else do I know about the goddamn Spartans? Oh yeah, that's right. 300 of these motherfuckers held back the whole goddamn Persian army and saved the goddamn Greek world from darkness and destruction. And it was their sacrifice that kept Western civilization intact, for fuck's sake. Everybody knows that about the Spartans.
Yeah, dude, if King Leonidas hadn't shown up with his fucking Spartans, defended the city, we don't know we'd probably be speaking Persian right now.
Exactly. We'd all be Persians.
I don't even know. I don't know what Persian sounds like.
You'd have a Persian rug in your house.
Oh, my God. Hideous.
Yeah,
I mean, they're good rugs, but still hideous.
You'd have a Persian beard too, because you'd have to trim that beard Persian style.
Oh no, would I? What does that look like?
I don't even really know, but I know that it doesn't look like you got it right there, friend.
Hold on, let me take a look at this. I got to see what this fucking shit's all about.
So the Spartans are.
Oh no, I look terrible. I look terrible with a Persian beard.
I mean, whatever,
Oh my God, no, Paul, it's not meant for people with fucking. Oh no,
I know. I'm telling you, man. If not for the 300.
Look at that. This shit. I can't do this.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do this ridiculous nonsense.
No, not a chance.
Oof.
Dude, TJ, if not for the 300, that's how you'd have to keep your facial hair. So
I know. It'd be horrible.
Thank them. The Spartans are probably most famous for their stand at Thermopylae in 480 BC, where 300 of their elite Spartiati purportedly held a narrow pass against the Persian force, realistically numbered about 120,000. The battle was already famous before the movie, a byword for standing firm in the face of hopeless odds. But what isn't often told is that those 300 Spartans led a much larger force of 7,000 Greeks and at least 3,000, people from the lower caste, the Helots. Worse.
No.
What?
No, that's not
No,
true,
dude, there
Paul.
was 300. Look, Paul, we've seen the movie.
There's 300 Spartans, Paul.
There was 300 Spartans. Those Greek cowards hid.
Mm-hmm.
The movie even addresses that. They were there, but they ran away.
They're like,
'Cause they're
"Hey
scared.
guys,
They
we got
didn't.
it back. We're gonna be back here."
They were very
See
scared.
ya."
They're little pussies.
I
And
brought
it's like,
warriors. What did you bring? Spartans, what is your profession? Ho! And then they ran away like pussies because they realized they couldn't fight.
It's like, we're nothing
no.
like that.
They led a much larger force, had a bunch of people in it. Now, here's the thing. The Spartans lost 298 of the 300 Spartans they sent to Thermopylae, which was about 4% of the available Spartan muster. So they had this idea that there were only 300 warriors in Sparta or whatever, and they sent them all to hold the gap or what. That's bullshit. It was 4% of what they could have sent. Conversely, the Thespians lost 700 people, which accounted for an entire generation of fighting males in that city-state. And nobody's ever made a fucking movie about them. By the way, nobody ever really talks about the futility of it either, which I think is kind of funny. So the Spartans, they did hold off the Persians for 2 or 3 days. And then they failed, and the Persians went on to burn Athens to the fucking ground. So they lost.
Man, that's a minor detail. That's like where Paul. You of course you had to bring some sour shit like that. Look, man, but eventually they won, right? Eventually they freaking beat Xerxes or whatever, and they freaking won.
I mean,
I saw the movie. They got the whole big ass army. They kicked his ass.
Eventually, Leonidas did stand up and throw a spear that ripped out one of Xerxes' nipple rings.
Right.
And the god king was wounded, and he took his Persian forces back.
My nipple! My most sensitive spot! How dare you! Off the invasion!
No, that's not what happened.
I think the argument or whatever, at least from the movie, it seemed to be was like, well, the fact that these guys were so fucking tough and led this, even though it was a doomed thing, it was like such a powerful example that it fucking gave others the courage to
the only
rise
reason
up
they
and
lost,
shit.
the little hunchback dude.
That's true. That little hunchback betrayer guy.
I want to be a Spartan.
Which, by the way, just shows that the policy of throwing the babies off the cliff was good.
Right, because they turned
the
out to be a little...
person was the fucking piece of shit.
All he wanted to do was be a
betrayed
Spartan.
them.
And then he showed him that little goat path. He's like, I know a goat path. And it's like,
oh, no, please. Here, King Xerxes, this way. Betrays his own people who treated him so well.
Yeah, so nice
to throwing him off a cliff.
Yeah, well, they didn't throw him off a cliff. They should have. It would have been a kindness to do that. Yeah, the point of the movie, Paul.
All right. Well,
deformed people should be killed. Didn't you see the movie?
The point is, my stoned ass didn't know that they basically failed at Thermopylae to do anything at all.
Yeah, they didn't do shit. It was just, it was a nice story, though.
The Persians sacked most of Greece as a result, and blah, 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 yada, 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 shibbity, dammity, doobity doo. But, hey.
It pretty much was probably a pretty futile day, and those lives were probably just thrown away.
A good movie.
But
a good movie, though.
Made a good movie, though. That is true.
Yeah, I don't know.
But what else did I know? So I asked my dumb ass, what else do you know about the Spartans, Paul Zigo? Well, I know what their gear is like, man. They fucking wade into battle basically naked. They got a cape. Mm-hmm. They are fucking ripped to shit and shaved down and oiled. I mean, just shredded. They probably got like 0.5% body fat. I mean, they're just literally just like cut. They got a spear, they got a shield, but they ain't got no armor or nothing to fucking hold them back. That's why they're so deadly, because they're They're so, maneuverable compared to the rest of these other guys. So depending on where you look, the type of gear carried by the Spartans into battle and the media representations can vary widely. They can be either extremely accurate or, sticking with the example of 300, incredibly off base. Damn.
What?
Wait a minute. Are they trying to say 300 is the accurate? No, they're saying that 300 is the off base one. Darn it.
Oh, no.
What? Oh, man. These party poopers.
Real Spartan soldiers paid attention to their years of training, and that meant that going into battle bare-chested was seen as openly suicidal. So they would have, laughed at anybody who showed up to fight like this. They would have been like, all right, idiot, you can go first.
Yeah, you're in front.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Show us how it's done, moron.
But a nice morale boost at the, they killed the stupid guy.
Yeah, the idiot that didn't bring his armor is dead.
Really puts me in the mood for a good battle.
So yeah, they wore suits of armor, which covered their torso and their faces pretty much fully. Sometimes with additional plates covering their shins and their forearms and their thighs. It gave them more. So it gave them more
pretty different looking, pretty different.
And I mean, this is even stylized. This would have been ceremonial level if it existed back then. But you get an idea that these guys they knew how to cover their vital organs and shit. You know what I mean?
Well, of course.
They were more maneuverable than kind of later armored warriors were, due to the fact that they didn't shield their legs, which was a downside. That's what the shield was for. You're supposed to cover your thighs with your shield. And
they sacrificed a little defense for greater maneuverability.
But, they weren't exactly shirtless, greased up, fucking dudes.
But Paul, isn't it more fun? And clearly there's a lot of element of homoeroticism there. So
it's a lot more fun, but I was kind of disappointed to find out that it wasn't true. Cause I knew, I thought the other Greeks were doing this shit, but I thought the fucking Spartans were fuck that orthodoxy.
Keep it real. Yeah.
All we need is a weapon, just give us the goddamn weapon.
Armor. I got a shield. Anything that comes at me, I'll stop with the shield. I don't need no other armor besides that. Keep it light.
Shield will block it. Shield doesn't get it. I'll dodge.
I don't even understand why they wear them fucking little loincloth things. Just be naked out there, Just go out butt fucking naked. Beat them that way. Fucking put the fear of God in them. You know what I mean?
Plus, you got an extra weapon. You got to piss on your enemy.
Yeah.
Start pissing on somebody. They're gonna, even if they got a sword, they're gonna back away. They don't want to get pissed on. Oh, wait a minute, stop! Dead.
So I asked myself, all right, dumbass, what other stupid stoner bullshit do you know about Sparta? And I did, as I was thinking about it, I did know that it was hard to become an actual citizen, and if you weren't a citizen, you were treated pretty poorly. And that turned out to be somewhat true, although I didn't really know the extent of it.
Oh, dude, it was, you basically I don't want to step out too much, but there was a very stringent approval process to become a warrior. Yeah.
And even to get into that, you had to be the son of somebody who was already a citizen. It was very hard. There were so we'll learn a little about it here. Ancient Sparta was an incredibly stratified society, strict class divisions drawn along social, gender, and ethnic lines. At the top of the heap, obviously below the two kings and some of the various oligarchs.
Yeah, the rich assholes. Yeah.
Were full citizens. These were ethnically Spartan men, so you couldn't even become a full citizen if you couldn't, if you weren't ethnically Dorian. So if you couldn't, so that just meant already it's a very xenophobic culture. And they had to complete a rigorous initiation ritual that followed by the initiation ritual was crazy. We could have done a whole episode probably just on that.
Oh yeah.
But it required, just a whole lot of physical training and martial training, and from a very young age. So boys were, and the school was pretty brutal. And if you didn't pass, well, your ass just wasn't a fucking citizen, and that was that. You know what I mean?
Dude, Paul, this ultra militaristic culture with terrible social stratification is super
alien to me.
I know it really has no analogs in history.
I can't even
think
fucking
of.
like.
Yeah, if there's only something that modern times we could think about that was similar. I'm drawing a blank though, personally.
So foreign. Wow, I've never heard of a culture like that.
Yeah.
So there was basically below full citizens, there was a merchant class called the Periakoi. And at the very bottom were the Helots, which were a state-owned serf class, basically slaves. They had various subclasses for non-Spartans sprinkled in the hierarchy here and there. But, you know, it was a very segmented, power concentrated at the very fucking top. And if you were in on it, you know, it was a big club. And if you weren't in it, you pretty much lived a horrible life.
You have been born to the piece of shit cast.
Yeah.
You are. Wait, but how do I get out of it? You can't. You were born that way. You will die. It's like, all right, this sucks.
So this necessitated some pretty crazy shit. And it turns out that Spartans engaged in actual class warfare as a way to keep their society in check. So, as is usually true in an aristocratic and oligarchic society, Spartan citizens were a minority class, as you can imagine. Because, you know, the more people there are in the club of money, the less money there is to go around. And, you know, so you got to keep it exclusive. While the proportion of Spartans to helots or helots varied over time, according to the historian Herodotus in the 5th century, or Herodotus in the 5th century, there were 7 helots for every Spartan citizen at the Battle of Plataea. So 7-1. That imbalance meant that the Spartans were pretty scared of the helots because, you know, 7-1. I don't care if you're a Spartan warrior or not. That's pretty bad odds.
Yeah.
In the real world. Because of the very real and very deserved fear of their perpetual underclass, the Spartans took severe measures to keep the helots subservient. In addition to public acts of humiliation, Plutarch says that each autumn, when the despotic ruling council known as the Ephors took office, they would formally declare war on the helots so that Spartan citizens could kill them with impunity every year. So it's basically like the purge.
Damn.
If Plutarch is to be believed, to keep them in check. Just every year they just had like a purge where it was just like, hey, if you're a citizen, we ask no questions. Yeah, you kill a slave or two, you kill somebody in the underclass or two. You know what I mean? We're not. Everybody looks the other way. I didn't see nothing. Did you see nothing? I didn't see nothing. Just
I mean, they're just like, obviously they're very fearful of their position being, you know, compromised. Like they enjoy being on the top of society, but they're also very scared of losing that because they're so out fucking
It's
numbered.
the power too, because, you know, if you don't necessarily kill them, you can just beat the shit out of them and say, look, I could have killed you. This is why you have to keep this place.
Or like you, like this, like all it would really take is that society no longer just cooperating with them, just being like, no, fuck you. We're not your servant class. There's more of us than there is of you. Fuck you. Go
right.
ahead. We're not going to do it. Like we just flat out refuse to fucking follow your shit anymore. You send soldiers at us, whatever. We don't give a fuck. We're not doing it. And it's just like at some point, it's like you can't stop that uprising at that point.
Well, fear is such a powerful motivator, so of course,
as always. So, and speaking of a good segue, and kind of in the same vein as all this, the Spartans basically had an SS.
Oh, I see. Hello.
I mean, it's the best analog that I can think of.
Parchments in order.
Let's see your scroll. I see.
No.
This does not check out at all. I'm afraid I must kill you.
So they had this like kind of like secret society called the Cryptea, which was made up of young men who had gone through the rigorous kind of training and exercise and crazy fucking stunts and stuff to become a full citizen. And they were hoping to prove their willingness to kill for the state, thereby getting higher military positions or honors. So these, if you had like ambitions and you were a full citizen, you wanted to be like a general or an oligarch yourself, you had to be in this, the Cryptea. And So after the E4s declared war on the Helots each fall, these young members of the Cryptea would go out right into the countryside with knives, just looking for Helots. And anyone they ran into, they were instructed to kill, with special attention being paid to the strongest ones. So they were really like supposed to like seek out the. So like if TJ was a Helot, you know what I mean?
Oh shit!
Yeah, they're just like,
Yeah, a couple of these guys would have jumped you and just gutted you. You know what I mean? Because like they were really instructed to like, don't pick on the little ones, don't pick on the fucking weak looking old men and shit.
Dude, if me and you were Helots, man, I'd be like, look at this one. They'd be like,
Yep.
weak one, you may live. All right.
Yeah, and I'd be, they'd just see me and they'd just be like, oh, look at a fat one. He's real weak. Let him live.
Yeah, like it's
Damn it.
fine.
I'm pretty fat too, just be like,
Yeah, but you're big.
I just gotta look really fucking doughy and just like.
The whole idea, of course, was to just reduce the overall number of capable people in this population. And that's what these guys did. They, in addition, they would.
It's a very eugenics based culture. If what is it, Plutarch, whatever the fuck, if that guy's to be believed,
Plutarch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Plutarch. That's the motherfucker I'm looking for.
In addition to just doing these types of missions, where it was like, hey, tonight you're on fucking kill the strong looking Helot patrol. They were
Please do not kill me.
They're also spies. Cryptea has its root
with that line alone, you just put a whole fucking ass 80s movie into my head, dude. Where Arnold is like the Helot that they target, but he fucking wastes all them instead.
You come after me, I'll give you one chance.
You Cryptea bastards.
I'm tired of it. I am the uprising. Who is with me?
We must rise up against them. We outnumber them 7-1. Rise up, yellow elites. We must destroy the Spartans.
It's beautiful.
So yeah, basically they spied too. So they were like spies. So in addition, to
they're
this,
down there. They're basically keeping track, making sure no fucking revolution.
Yeah, the weak Helots, they're like, look, we like you Helots. Just tell us what's going on.
They would actually just dress. There was really
bread?
no way to tell, so they would just dress as Helots and they would kind of like sneak around, go to the markets, and they would try and like keeping their ears peeled for anybody that's talking like we should rise up against these bastards. And then
What idea? I like that
Oh,
idea.
yes, tell me more. Down this dark alleyway.
pretty much. A lot of these dudes, obviously, it's a dangerous thing going out with just kind of like a knife and a disguise. And these dudes would die a lot. But anybody that made it through their service in this was kind of elevated in the military. So it was a path upward for people who weren't just happy enough being an actual citizen. They wanted to be over the actual citizens, I guess. So the last thing that I could think of that I knew about the Spartans was like they were undefeatable, man. Nobody ever defeated them. That's why they were the Spartans, man. While like all the other fucking city states in Greece were all like art and whimsy and theater. Like, why do you think the thespians? Why do you think the thespians got utterly like a whole generation wiped out after the? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because they weren't doing it right. Because nobody could beat the fucking Spartans.
I can't do that. I lift away.
Because they're just too fucking
fighting.
tough.
I can't fight.
And actually, look, and this is not to undercut it. I'm not going to tell you that Spartans were weak. Obviously, like they were there's a reason they're portrayed the way they are in history.
Ass motherfuckers. I mean, obviously, when you devote that much of your culture to military pursuits, you're gonna be badass.
They were badasses. They could fight. They had armor. They had deadly weapons. They knew how to use them. They were trained from a very young age to use them. But this is true of a lot of Greek warriors. And in truth, the Spartans got beat a bunch of times. So far less famous than Thermopylae, but much more consequential was the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, where an outnumbered Theban force crushed the Spartans and broke their power forever. So this is basically how the Spartans ended.
They just got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
by a lesser number of dudes.
Yep.
Here again, strategy.
Sparta's rigid conservatism hobbled them in the face of innovative and forward-thinking Theban commander Epaminondas.
That's basically what fucking happens. It's like Yeah, I mean, like, so the problem with a militaristic culture is it becomes very conservative and thus very entrenched in tradition. And then once everyone's seen your bag of tricks, all it takes is one motherfucker that's like thinking outside the box to be like, hey, what if we did this?
Well, you see it a lot of times in like,
and then you're just fucking dead.
Well, you see it in like sports.
Bye, Sparta.
You see it in sports a lot too, as like a modern analog. You see it if a team like has a new player or a new bag of tricks that no one's ever seen, then they're really successful. But after a few seasons of it, it's like you'll notice like it just changes because everyone knows what to do when it comes to that. So the Spartans kind of fell in that same thing. Like they have a certain way of fighting, a certain culture. When you don't innovate at all, eventually when someone does come with innovation that can beat that, you're just fucked.
Yeah, and that was basically it. To make a long story short, they stacked their left flank, the Thebans did, with way more soldiers than was customary. And, adhering to the orthodoxy, the Spartans just kind of couldn't overcome that. Their left flank kind of fell too early before it could be relieved. And then once that happened, the whole formation was broken, and it was just like it was a total victory. They ended up capturing the king, one of the kings, Cleombrotus I, and this really shocked me. A Spartan relief force under the other king, Archidamus III, just heard of the slaughter of the other king and fled, rather than even bother to take the field. And that was the end of the Spartans, basically, in history. That was kind of like
because they knew he knew the jig was up. He's like, wait a minute, like our way. I mean, when you're a military culture and you get defeated, you get your ass handed to you. It's like, what are you going to do? I mean, they probably sent that guy into battle because he was probably the most capable.
What are you trying to make a connection here, TJ?
I'm trying this. I don't know. I feel like I was just like looking at military budgets to see, like what the militarized cultures today were and stuff. And turns out, I don't know if you guys realize this, but like our military budget's actually the highest in the world. Yeah. By a pretty significant margin. It's almost like we're a militaristic culture or something.
Oh,
like, look at us. We're like, yeah. I don't know. It's like, look.
Well, at least we won't ever die like the Spartans. We won't ever lose.
Like we spend like way more than like pretty much everybody else and stuff. And
that's true.
I don't know. I was just thinking maybe it's like we could almost
but dude, there's a difference. TJ, we're innovating, dude. We're innovating right now, man. We got F-35s and shit. We're gonna make like hypersonic missiles and Star Wars satellites and stuff and death lasers and rail guns. Spartans did the same old shit. Dude, our military is innovating. So you know what, TJ? You can say all this crap trying to draw this false comparison, but the United States will always be number one. If history has taught us anything, is that people on top always stay on top.
Boom!
The end. The end.
I was going to end this by saying that, given a rousing "this is Sparta," but after learning a little bit about it, I'll say like, this is Sparta.
This is
Sparta.
Sparta.
This is Sparta, but this is Sparta.